All right, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're going to explore the absolutely fascinating reality of inflation. And to do that, we're taking a single crisp $100 bill from 1974 on a time-traveling shopping spree all the way to the year 2026. Now, we hear the word inflation thrown around constantly in the news, right? But it kind of just feels like this abstract economic concept. Well, today, we're going to make it incredibly real. We're looking at exactly what happens to the purchasing power of your money over 5 decades. And trust me, the numbers we're about to see, they are literally eye-opening.
To truly grasp this massive macro shock to the economy, we've got to first confront a pretty startling reality. The US dollar's value plummeted by a staggering 86% over a 50-year span. Just think about that for a second. An 86% drop. That means the vast majority of the dollar's ability to actually buy goods and services, poof, just evaporated. This isn't some slight dip we're talking about. It's a fundamental restructuring of what our money is actually worth. It really raises some serious questions about the long-term viability of cash as a completely safe haven to store your wealth.
And the math behind that drop is just brutal. If you took that same $100 bill from 1974, you would need $672.14 in 2026 just to match its original purchasing power. Honestly, that means the cumulative inflation rate over this period has been over 570%. You aren't buying more stuff, you definitely aren't buying better stuff with that $672. You are literally just buying the exact same basket of everyday items that a single Benjamin Franklin could have gotten you back in the mid-70s.
But this economic volatility wasn't just some steady, predictable climb. Looking back at 1974, we see an extreme 12.34% inflation rate. That was a massive spike, driven heavily by geopolitical events like foreign oil embargoes that basically sent shockwaves through the whole global economy. Now compare that to a much more moderate 1.90% recorded in 2026. Inflation isn't a constant speed limit, right? It's more like a financial roller coaster that can suddenly accelerate and rapidly shrink the value of the money sitting right in your pocket. So how do these abstract percentages translate to our daily lives? That brings us to Section 1, the grocery store shock. Back in the early 70s, a gallon of milk cost just 89 cents. Now, to anyone shopping today, that sounds like an unbelievable, honestly almost comical bargain. But wait, because when you realize that adjusted for inflation, that 89 cents equates to $6.25 today, well, it hits a bit different. When you look at it through that lens, you realize the milk didn't necessarily become more valuable. Actually, the currency we used to buy it simply became much, much weaker. And coffee prices? Well, they highlight this pinch even more dramatically. For the roughly 66% of us adults who rely on a daily cup, this is a very real expense. In the early 70s, a pound of ground roast was just 66 cents. But compounded by a declining dollar, especially when you compare it to the currencies of major exporters like Brazil, it skyrocketed to $9.61 by early 2026. The greenback slide acts as this invisible surcharge on imported goods. And honestly, your morning brew is one of the most vivid examples of that eroded value.
Let's step out of the grocery store for Section 2, hitting the road with gas and cars, to see how transportation costs have accelerated.
In 1972, a gallon of regular gas was merely 36 cents. But man, our wallets are incredibly vulnerable to global events. Sudden foreign oil embargoes by OPEC effectively tripled that price to $1.19 by 1980. It's a really stark reminder of just how fast our budgets can get shocked. And again, a declining dollar means that any global commodity priced internationally is going to end up costing you, the everyday consumer, significantly more at the local pump.
And hey, if you wanted to drive that gas in style, a brand new Ford Mustang was $2,510 back in 1972. That translates to just over $17,600 when adjusted for inflation. Now, that is a far cry from what you'd pay at a dealership today, right? A new pony car could easily set you back anywhere from the high 20s to over 50 grand. This massive gap shows us that on top of standard inflation, things like supply chain disruptions, modern safety regulations, and advanced technology have pushed the real costs of vehicles way beyond just the baseline degradation of the dollar.
Looking at groceries, gasoline, and cars, it is remarkably easy to feel pessimistic. I mean, it seems like the cost of merely existing is constantly running away from us, which naturally leads us to a very important question. Did absolutely everything go up in price? Is there any silver lining at all to this 50-year economic story?
Well, that introduces a massive twist to our story in Section 3, the technology paradox.
Consider this absolutely incredible comparison.
In 1972, Hewlett-Packard introduced the very first handheld scientific calculator. The price tag? $395. Now, when we adjust that for inflation, it equates to $2,775 in today's dollars. Just think about that for a second. That exact same purchasing power today doesn't just buy you a calculator, it buys you a fully maxed out, high-performance laptop capable of complex artificial intelligence processing, global video communication, the whole shebang. So while your dollars buy far less food and fuel, they buy exponentially more computing power than anyone in the 1970s could have ever dreamed of.
So, after seeing how some goods soar while tech plummets, let's dive into Section 4, Measuring the Silent Tax. We really need to understand the underlying mechanics here.
Economists perfectly describe this ongoing phenomenon as an invisible surcharge. As economist Thomas Savage notes, it acts as a, quote, hidden tax. You don't see it as a line item on your grocery receipt, and you certainly don't file it on your return every April. Instead, it's this silent force that constantly reduces what your paycheck can actually provide for your family. Think about it. If your salary doesn't increase at the exact same rate as inflation, you are effectively taking a pay cut every single year.
So how do we actually track this hidden tax? Well, the government uses something called the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. It's an index number, so not a dollar value, but a relational measure. It tracks a defined market basket of goods and services over time. By keeping the items in that basket relatively consistent, the CPI helps us visualize the exact size and direction of price movements. It basically acts as the ultimate historical scoreboard for the purchasing power of our currency.
Let's see how this builds, decade by decade, using that CPI data. To maintain the exact same buying power of our original $100 from 1974, you needed $265 by 1990. Fast forward to 2010, and that number climbs to $442. And finally, arriving in 2026, we hit $672. It is a relentless, compounding march upward. It really shows us that inflation isn't just an isolated event, it's an ongoing structural feature of our modern economic system.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a rather provocative thought about the invisible forces shaping your bank account. If $100 morphed into over $670 just to buy the exact same groceries and gas over the last 50 years, what exactly will your current savings buy half a century from now? It's a pretty powerful reminder that in the world of finance, standing still means you are actually falling behind. Understanding these historical trends isn't just fun trivia, it's absolutely crucial for protecting your financial future.